My name's Matthew East. I'm a provisional psychologist, or at least at the time that I'm recording this video, I am. I'm going to describe to you some of the skills that I use in my work. So, my work primarily involves complex presentations. So, 2 or 3 different formal clinical diagnoses, or probably should be clinically diagnosed. So, that's because I work on a scheme called the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Most of my clients, they have at least what are called, and this is a terrible term, developmental disorders. So a developmental disorder is something such as autism, ADHD, or something similar to that. There are other things which might be considered impairments, such as brain damage, or they might have some very interesting condition. They might have something like aphasia, where they're not able to properly understand the senses due to brain damage. Or I've even had clients who are in like a constant cycle of amnesia. I have seen so many different presentations, it's insane. The reason why that's the case is because the way that both psychologists are trained in Australia and the way also kind of the way money is made in Australia with psychologists is that all the complex, hectic shit goes to the most junior person. And most of I went through something called the 4+2 program, which is kind of like a craftsmanship approach to psychology. There are a lot more boring people who did something called the clinical masters program, and they fucked off right to private practice, and they never got to learn any of this stuff. So I'm going to teach you what they didn't learn. First of all, if someone has 1 or 2 different diagnoses, it's going to increase the likelihood that they have a third that's not yet diagnosed. And it doesn't necessarily need to be diagnosed. There's no need to fetishize diagnosis. Often, if you're not careful, it just becomes like a sort of like a mean word thing. It's like, hey, you have this, or some shit like that. But particularly with autism, you're going to see a lot of overlap with borderline personality disorder. The reason for that is that a lot of people who are autistic, they have issues with social skills, they have issues interacting, being able to effectively form secure attachments with people, because there's that issue with signaling. Of picking up on the social cues for when to give affection, when to take affection. And what often happens is that we end up with situations where the autistic person will find, or the disabled person, I'm going to use that term because it describes a whole lot of behaviors, is that it's easier to get a negative reaction from someone than it is to get a positive reaction, right? And we all have a need to feel included, and actually a way of feeling included is to be directly excluded by someone, or to be in a fight, or to be something like that. That's a form of social interaction. If someone is not skilled at social interactions, that's what they tend to go to. And there's all these interruptions to the ability to have secure relationships. And over time, you often end up with clients with borderline personality disorder. And over time, working in that population, one of the things both as a support worker and then a prob psych, was that you have to just assume that your clients have BPD. And once you do that, work on that assumption and behave accordingly, your life is a lot simpler. And because you realize where the boundaries might need to be, you can have empathetic for the emotional world of the person that you're working with, and you're able to gently encourage a more civil, more effective communication and relationship styles. Now, for all issues with clients in this population, I've found the easiest, like without a doubt, the thing which has the most versatile utility is behavior chain analysis, which is a sort of the equivalent of, say, the cognitive triangle for dialectical behavior therapy. Okay. So in cognitive behavior therapy, we look at thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We see the interactions between these things in a client after mapping in a situation, and then we figure out a way to interrupt those three things to be able to change the thought, the feeling, or the behavior, whichever one we want, really. And behavior chain analysis, it kind of becomes your bread and butter like that as well. So with behavior chain analysis, we start with a designated problem behavior. We then look at the precipitating event, vulnerability factors, chain of events, consequences, solutions, prevention strategy, and repair. So when working with say a person with borderline, first of all, I'll describe the history of DBT. DBT was created by an incredibly important clinical psychologist called Marsha Linehan. She's pretty famous in circles. And it was, at the time, she noticed that the psychopathology with the highest suicide rate was borderline personality disorder. Herself had BPD when she was younger. And yeah, so she developed the therapeutic modality to fix that. So yeah, often with that population, there are a lot of fights. They happen all the fucking time. So I will often find myself with my clients going through this thing, and the most common problem was an interpersonal one. And I think that's what I'm going to use as my example today. This is all improv, mate. I haven't planned shit. Okay, so problem behavior. So let's say that we're debriefing. Say there's a fight between a girlfriend and a boyfriend. Super generic. And we're going to say, in this situation, because I don't want to be accused of being sexist, I'm going to say that the guy has borderline personality disorder. Because BPD, actually no, not just sexist, advocacy at the same time. I think BPD is underdiagnosed in men. I think there's, when you look at the rates for it, there are far more women who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder than men. And I'm not seeing that. That's not matching what I'm seeing in the NDIS. I think we just don't. I think there's just this idea that BPD is like a woman's disorder or something, and it's just not fucking true. It's the attachment system, brother. Everyone's got a fucking attachment system, right? Men aren't soulless freaks. If their attachment needs in the system isn't appropriately adapted to situations, that person's going to suffer, right? Like, men get BPD. Anyway, fight between boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay? We have a precipitating event. The guy, we will say that old mate, he spent too much money on coffees or something. And the lady's like, hey man, dude, just Nescafe, it's alright, right? Just have the fucking Nescafe, man. Stop wasting your money on these lattes. They're not good for you. Alright, so we're gonna say that was the precipitating event. Actually, no, that would be something else. Precipitating event would be that you came home, and so you were coming through the door. So scrap that entire example. That what I said would be more described in the problem behavior as a better description of that. So this is a good point for me to take a step back and sort of describe how this works. Okay, this isn't just a nice little set of boxes that someone came up with of what would be a good question to ask. It's the basis for dialectical behavior therapy, and the same with acceptance and commitment therapy, is applied behavior analysis. People don't like me saying that, but it is. It's an incredibly important craft that you need to learn if you're going to understand how a whole family of different therapeutic modalities work. And because there's all this taboo with ABA, we've got people walking around who don't know like how to mix the colors of their paints when they're painting their portraits. Okay, it's a fundamental thing. I really wish people just studied. You don't need to like the modality and what it's about, but you need to study the theory behind it, because when you do that, you're able to understand how a whole lot of other different things work. Well, you don't. Of course, there's other ways to become brilliant, or good. I don't know. I'm still halfway through my journey, so don't think I'm claiming to be. Anyway, I'll complete the video later.